Hello and welcome to the Plaid Sheep Oracle. Leo. Oh, Leo. Very interesting things are happening for you, Leo. Your initial card coming out, it's from the Vera, Sibilla, Italiana Oracle deck. And this is L'Amica, the friend, the female friend. But it isn't really, it's kind of not about that. It's about this card's image in relationship to this image. This is the lover, l'amante. But it's seeing something that you didn't see before. And below this lover is the enemy, il nemico. And then at the underside of the deck is the sick person, l'ammalato. There is something that is wanting to be seen that you have, I think, you've either, and this I think is going to be different for different people, you either have been refusing to see it, or it's kind of subconsciously there, right? There's some subconscious or unconscious stuff that is preventing you from seeing it. When I asked for a little clarity about that, what I got was, right, this confusion here in the middle with the tower on one side and the Hierophant on the other. So there may be things that you are concerned about, that if you look, there will be trouble in the form of the tower, or it may be that your beliefs, the way that you see things, the way that you look at things, is preventing you from seeing it. You might also be preventing yourself from seeing it kind of deliberately, because it goes against what you believe or the sort of prevailing beliefs around you. But the underside of that, right, the visible, is this Page of Cups with a star under it. So there is, and then the Six of Cups at the very bottom, right, with this another offer. So there is something being presented to you. It may, with one of the cards that's coming up, have to do with upcoming eclipse season. And it's interesting because the eclipse isn't, it's a Virgo full moon and then an Aries new moon. But I think that because there's this ongoing, or, well, one thing is that there's this ongoing Mars-Pluto opposition. And now that Mars is moving forward through Cancer, he is on his way to that final exact opposition with Pluto. He re-enters Leo on April 18th, and then he makes that final exact opposition on April 26th. And, you know, all of these things are interconnected. We often talk about aspects or transits kind of separately, but you can't really. It's all, you know, interconnected. I mean, something that was coming up for me in this way, you may know that prior to 2020, the last time Saturn and Pluto met in a conjunction in Capricorn was in 1518, which is the year that Luther nailed his document up onto the church door. It was the beginning of the Reformation. But that conjunction was trined by Uranus and Taurus. And there was a bunch of other things happening at the same time, too, if you look at the chart of that moment. So you know, kind of talking about the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, and yes, there are thematic and energetic and elemental things that are associated there, but you can't look at it in a vacuum. And I think the same is true of this Mars-Pluto opposition from Leo to Aquarius. It's, you know, it's happening amongst a bunch of other transits and aspects. So there's something too about things being interrelated. And there's also a lot, for me, coming out anyway, of the non-physical and physical, and how the two things are completely interwoven, and you can't really separate them out. So it seems to me, well, here, you're starting with this Seven of Materials, and right below it is this Knight of Voices. So the Seven of Pentacles and the Knight of Swords. Something that you believe is very non-physical. You know, maybe you're engaged either in learning something new that's very intellectual, or you're engaged in learning some sort of new spiritual practice. So it seems very mental, very non-physical. In fact, has or is going to have really physical results, consequences. The bottom of the deck is the Five of Inspiration. Something unexpected, something that might be a little confronting for you, perhaps. That it's going to take you in a direction that you didn't expect to go. That you had an idea about where this was going to go and how it would turn out. And then we also have the Wheel. The Wheel of Fortune. You were prepared, anticipating something, and you're going to get something else. Or it might be something in addition. Because we have this Lover's card. And this seems like these two people who appear to be walking in kind of in different planes, right? Like on the X and Y axis. They aren't actually heading towards one another. But if they each continue the way they're going, I sort of anticipate them coming together, like two lines that start out separate and then coming together. With the Six of Emotions, I want to say that this is something that has its origins in the past. That it's something that began longer ago, perhaps, than you think. This doesn't normally come up for me very much, but it might have previous past life implications or connections. That something is coming back around, that maybe, you know, if you were some kind of person in a past life, that is going to repeat for you, and in an unexpected way. So then we have the Eight of Emotions. The eclipse. For me, eclipses are revealers. I know there are some folks who think that eclipses hide things, but that doesn't make sense to me. For me, eclipses are revealers. We see things that we couldn't see before because the light source changes. Right? The way that the light appears to us changes. There's a visible change in the relationship. And because they are associated with the nodes. The eclipses happen in the signs where the North and South node are moving. And this upcoming Virgo lunar eclipse is near the South node. Something that is in the right, that is from the past, something that is expected, I want to say. I mean, it's interesting because it is Virgo Pisces, and you would think that that maybe you were expecting something Piscean, but it seems, right, that makes sense. But then there's this Virgo aspect of physicality that is coming through. But there are also aspects of the past, of that which has been known, but is now perhaps being seen in a different light. And then the solar eclipse, which is what this appears to be, is in Aries. It's the final Aries. It's the final solar eclipse in Aries Libra. At least I think it is. So there is some new, it's like a yes and thing, or a this and that thing. So there is both something being revealed that you didn't see before. There is a result that is going to happen that was unexpected, that, you know, maybe puts you off your stride, that takes you in a direction that you didn't anticipate. But it also has some connection to the past. And so we have the unfolding. There is something unfolding. Something that has an origin in the past. And I don't know, I want to say that it's in the really long past. That this is a life that your soul lived a really long time ago. Like in the ancient world. There's also something perhaps about a meeting, something coming together. We have this devotion card. But that doesn't feel like a really strong thing in the moment. Then the bottom of the deck is the tangible. So whatever you're engaged in that you believe is very mental, non-physical, maybe spiritual, is going to have very tangible results. Because when we have manna, right, like manna from heaven, and then we have architecture, a really tangible thing being built. And along with the unfolding, we have evolve. And then with this intuition card, how this feels is that this, right, this bee here in the middle of the eye is a tangible thing. And that it kind of was always in the picture, but maybe you weren't able to see it. And you weren't able to see it either because you were hiding it deliberately from, right? You didn't want to look in that direction. Or some underlying belief of yours prevented it from occurring. I don't know, examples to try and make that clearer. You know, possibly if you were raised with a particular religion or faith, you know, that had a very singular God, where, you know, where everything was the God's province, kind of. And then discovering that, you know, you can manifest things, right? Discovering the law of attraction, say, and how, you know, actually seeing it in action in your life, perceiving that, and feeling really uncomfortable about it. Also, possibly if you were raised with the idea that wealth was a problem, that to be wealthy was to be selfish, you know, maybe there was no way to be wealthy and remain in integrity, or that, you know, poverty was virtuous. And then to have some project that you're working on actually deliver a lot of money to you in a way that you didn't expect. And that can make you really uncomfortable. So but it has, right, there is purpose. There is an evolving, unfolding story that is happening. And the opportunity, the invitation, right, is to go. Here's the Six of Swords, and right below it, the Ace of Cups, and then actually the Six of Cups repeating. And the bottom of this deck is the Queen of Pentacles. So that if you perhaps have a real discomfort with the idea of wealth, if there's some real if there's some real blocks in you around that, there may also be something about blocks around being really visible. I mean, it's kind of an odd thing to say for Leo. Leo normally is very comfortable with being visible. But it's possible that it's one of those things, depending on where your Leo placements are. You could have Sun in Leo, but in the 12th house, where you feel, maybe you feel really uncomfortable with notoriety or with being the center of attention. Or maybe you have a Leo North Node, and this is something you're evolving into. We have this Queen of Swords, this mental journey, this idea, this, it might also be that it was your intention to have a career that was very mentally, intellectually focused. You were going to be a lawyer or a novelist or, a scientific researcher in some way that was very, separate. Maybe you were, doing thought experiments rather than working with physical stuff. And that's changing. That you found you're really attracted to some really tangible thing. To something really earthy. Because then we have this Judgment. And she's kind of feeling like, I'm actually sort of seeing this as you sort of having this cognitive dissonance. And all of these people, it's kind of a reverse image. Normally when we'd see this top angelic being as, guides or source. But I'm seeing it here as reversed. Where here you are, it's a bit like you're having cognitive dissonance. You have the beginning of a migraine. And then there's all of your guides down here. They're kind of, they're sort of waiting for you to come to terms with this and to show up as the Empress. So to go from this, right, this very intellectual, it could also be how you see yourself. There's been a lot of that coming through the readings too. Self-perception, the way that we form an identity and then we cling to it. Even in the face of evidence that shows us that maybe it's not what we think, or that we have other facets. Or that maybe, what we thought was our personality was really a bunch of coping mechanisms that we adopted when we were children. And then we decided that it was just who we were. But that you thought of yourself as a very intellectual or maybe very spiritual person. And now you're beginning to see that you really are the Empress, that maybe you have desires, appetites, I want to say. Appetites. And often that word is used a little bit in a negative way, Like, you know, Henry VIII had a lot of appetites, you know, for food and sex and power and all of these things. And so we have, I think, a negative notion of that, of physical appetites. So this may be something else that you're coming into, right? This cognitive dissonance that you're experiencing. Accepting this, and then, right, with the Fool, really running with it. It may take you a little time. It may be, you know, depending on where your Leo placement is, or perhaps you don't even have a planet in there, but you've been drawn to the Leo readings. That this, right, this Mars-Pluto oppositional dance that they've been doing, along with other things happening, Uranus moving through Taurus, Pluto having been in Capricorn, Saturn, the, you know, sort of the planet of physicality, moving into this Piscean space in the last couple of years. So there's a lot of things going on, and this Pluto-Mars opposition may be kind of bringing it to a head, to a crisis point, I almost want to say. I don't think that it's a crisis in a really negative way. I don't think that anything, you know, terrible is going to happen, that you're going to have some sort of crisis. But you may have a mental one. That this cognitive dissonance is going to make you really uncomfortable. But it seems to me that there is a real possibility that you are going to accept this change and then really rapidly start running with it. Because then we have abundance. And at the bottom of the deck, beginning. This is the Moon, the Queen of the Moon deck. Interestingly, rather than the Queen of the Sun, and the Sun is your planet, but here we're seeing the Moon. It may be that some of this was also triggered by the Leo full moon that we had last month in February. That was another click kind of in the process. That climax opened something up for you. And then we have nourishment. You know, this could be this could have to do with your physical body too. If you've lived a life of the intellect, or even if you didn't have a very intellectual job or approach, you may have been very disconnected from your body. Certainly that's kind of standard in the modern world. We need other people to tell us how we feel, right? We have to go to the doctor to find out how we feel. You know, or we have an aura ring, or a, you know, something similar that gives us a reading so that we know how we're doing, but we have to wait for the readout rather than feeling into our bodies. Many, you know, issues around digestion, around being malnourished because your body doesn't take in, you know, maybe you're eating really well, but your body doesn't receive that. You know, these are all kind of mental blocks around receiving, around having, around being nourished, being sated. And there's this focus card. That there's something, right? You really are coming to some sort of realization. And with gratitude, I want to say that this is a realization around the interconnectedness of physical and non-physical, sacred and profane. Right? It's these two people meeting as they go. Right? They're each traveling in what appears to be an unrelated direction, but they come together. And that this is, right, this is the healing of this sickness. This sickness of separation. The sickness of, judgment on the physical, judgment on, physical desires, on sex, on, the body in general. And we are that even now. And it shows up in ways that, things need to be really clean, and we need to prevent things from entering the body. We need to be pure. We talk about eating clean. There are still ways that this subtle judgment, degradation of the physical, particularly the physical body, the human body, shows up. Right? Also the separation that we've had, especially, it started even before the lockdowns, but it, it's kind of reached what I hope is a peak of separation. When was the last time you shook someone's hand? That you didn't know very well. A healing of the body, of our relationship to that physicality. And this may also have to do with this passage of Pluto through Aquarius. Leo is the counterpoint. When, if we go too far, going too far into Aquarius, too far perhaps into an air space, heading more into Borg territory, into groupthink territory, into the tyranny of the majority territory, into, an excess digital space. That Leo, right, the personal. Venus had her retrograde in Leo in 2023. She spent 4 months there. And I think she kind of left a mark, a legacy. And now she's having her retrograde, her move from evening to morning star in Aries. Trine Leo. She will also have one more meeting with Uranus in Taurus at the very last degree of Taurus. It's the last time they will meet in Taurus, because the next time she comes around, he will have moved into Gemini. And all of these things are related. Advice. Movement, and movement really physical. Really being aware of what you have, being aware of your, kind of physical motion. And there's also an idea here of coming down off the mountain. So if you've been on the mountain, meditating, separating yourself from any earthly attachments of any kind, it's time to come down off the mountain. And there will be a period, perhaps, of confusion. There's a little more of that migraine energy going on. But then below that, we have this Page of Pentacles with this new physical beginning. And the bottom of the deck is the Eight of Wands. Fast. So when this shift happens for you, something's going to move fast. It may be a long initial process, right, of you coming to terms with this, possibly. It may be that it's been happening for a while and that it kind of is peaking here with this Mars-Pluto opposition. And then it's just going to go. And interestingly, I'm noticing now that one of the numbers on the bottom of this card, the one that was visible to me, is 26, which is the day, April 26th. That is, and look, in fact, there's a 4 here, 4/26, April 26th. The final Pluto opposition. Ace of Pentacles. So when this new thing comes in, when the physical manifestation appears, when the unexpected tangible thing happens, embrace it. Be the Empress. Be the Empress. And I want to say there's a King of Swords here. You are not the King of Swords. The King of Swords isn't like an audience. Be the example to other people who may be really mentally focused, intellectually focused. Be the example. And he's kind of, right, like he's still up here on the mountain. Clearly. Right? He's up here on the mountain. Invite him to follow you down. And it doesn't mean that you never climb the mountain again, that you don't have, this strong intellectual life. But now it's combined. It is coming together. The end of the separation. Leo. And I think you are leading the way for the rest of us. I think this is a process that we're all engaged in. And you and maybe Taurus, perhaps. I think maybe all the fixed signs, actually. Perhaps. Maybe engaged in some aspect of this as, right, partly because of Pluto, partly because this is the end of Uranus's passage through a fixed sign. Through Venus's space. You are part of who is leading the way, Leo. I hope this is exciting for you. I hope the idea is exciting, and maybe that this period will be shortened for you. But I wish you all the very, very best, Leo. And I will see you next time. So long.